Hey, it's Dan Morales. This is Homebuyer Radio, episode number 120. So for the last several weeks, we've been doing a podcast just talking about common questions that I get from folks, and I like to try to give just answers to those questions so that way you can kind of learn a little bit more about this mortgage process. I had an email from a client here recently, and one of the questions that they had asked about was their husband was employed at a company, and just a salary employee, and then he went to a position that is now commissioned, and they were having difficulty being able to get a loan approved because he just recently made that change. That can be problematic, okay? And so what I want to talk about this week is just one of the challenges when it comes to income is, and we've talked about this in previous episodes, is I have to document that it's stable, it's consistent, and it's going to be ongoing, okay? So if it's a new form of income that you just started to receive, like commission, and you don't have a history or a track record of receiving it, it can be difficult to count it. Now, there are some exceptions to those rules, okay? One of them would be you just graduated college and you went right into a field that is where you were, if you will, educated, okay? So, I have a lot of clients that are engineers. They, for a lot of you who are listening, this could be you, right? We're coming up in that time of year where a lot of folks are graduating college, they're getting jobs, and just looking to get kind of started in life here, right? So that could be some of you who are listening here. So, you just recently graduated, got a job, and now you're like, well, I don't have 2 years worth of history, but I just got hired in, got a really good gig, and I want to go through and I want to buy a house, but I'm afraid that I can't get approved because I don't have 2 years of job history. Well, in that case, that's acceptable, okay? You're not going to have 2 years of job history because you've been in school. So we typically got to document, what you've done for the last couple years. If you've been in school, that's fine. I can document that you attended school, and I can document you graduated. And if I can show that you went into a field that is consistent with what your education is, that's even better yet. So in those cases, you don't necessarily have to have a 2-year job history. And I guess that's really kind of where a lot of this kind of goes to is, like this job history or 2 years worth of job history, or consistency and stability of income. All of those things are things that are really important as part of the mortgage process, right? So why do they matter? Why are they so picky about documenting where somebody's income comes from? Well, it's a pretty obvious answer, right, guys? Your income is your ability to repay this mortgage. If you don't have a stable, consistent, and ongoing source of income, you likely cannot continue to pay this mortgage, and likely would have difficulty being able to keep the house and keep afloat. So that's where the stability of income is really important. For somebody who is, let's just say, a salaried person, now they're going to commission, the challenge you have there is, even if you're with the same company, now the challenge becomes, the stability and consistency of income. You had stability and consistency of income when you were salaried, but now that you went to that commission role, there's no track record of what you're likely going to make in that new position. So normally, a general rule of thumb is when somebody is newly commissioned or newly self-employed, or they have some form of variable compensation, that typically commission or something like that. But the general rule of thumb is you got to have a 2-year history of that. You got to have 2 years worth of tax returns that you've got to be able to document. And the reason they look for 2 years is they're looking for stability of income, consistency, and that gives you kind of an idea of what's likely to continue, right? So if you went, let's say, commissioned in 2018 and you made $80,000 in 2018, even though you have, let's say, 12 months worth of commission income, you can show that you've made that, you may have difficulty getting a mortgage because a lot of lenders want to see that 2 years worth of commission history. Now, if you don't have 2 years, there are some lenders that will do some portfolio types of loans where they're loans that aren't necessarily going to be sold to Fannie Mae or Freddie Mac because you wouldn't meet their guidelines by having only that 1 year worth of history. But you may have some lenders who say, gosh, this client has enough of a down payment, they've got a really good credit history, there's other factors that warrant approving that loan, and in those cases that mortgage could still possibly be made. I know we've done loans like that where they make sense and you can warrant the loan being made to a client. And that's one of the benefits of working for a bank is, being a bank, we have our own money, so we do make loans that don't necessarily fit the box of what Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac require required for a mortgage approval, but we still make them because, for the bank, it's still a good asset for us to hold on to, and we're comfortable with the overall risk. That's part of that transaction as well, too. So, consistency, stability, and likeliness of continuance of income, really important parts as part of what we do in being able to get your loan approved. Income is one of those huge parts, just kind of like, credit is, another huge part of that too, right? But income is just one of those really big parts that can have a really big impact on how, things shake out for you when it's all said and done. Hey, my name is Dan Morales. I go by Dan, the Mortgage Man. You can find me online at danmorales.com. That's DANMORALEZ.com. You can call me at 616-931-4629. You can also text that number too. I have more and more of you that do that. I feel like more of you text me than actually call me, and that's a-okay too. I try to respond to all communication as quickly as possible. So a text message or a phone call is fine, whatever works easiest for you. Hey, you can also check out these podcasts. We do them online. You can see them on Instagram TV. You'll find them there if you look for me at Dan the Mortgage Man on Instagram. You'll also find us on Facebook at Dan the Mortgage Man, and LinkedIn at Dan Morales. You'll find me there as well too. Just love connecting with you guys all throughout the country. It's just been a ton of fun just being able to grow our listener base, but more importantly, grow our client base with those of you who are all over the country. More and more of you are reaching out, and we just really appreciate the opportunity to connect with you and try to help you through this mortgage process. And it's just fun to kind of see our clients all spread throughout the country as we grow our listenership to this podcast. So hey, I'd like to thank you for listening and remind you that North Point Bank is an equal housing lender.